I'm not weak and powerless against anything, absolutely nothing. It's just that I haven't built the skills on how to manage or how to defeat some things. That's all. I'm not powerless against anything. You come at me with a nuke. The only reason I can't defend myself is I haven't figured out how to yet. The most powerful thing that you can have as a human being is have your own thoughts. If you convince people of what they truly are, and that's not sick, and you change people's identity or show them how to change their identity, now you have nothing to gain from it.
Hey, guys, it is Alison. I am the host of your show, Alison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey, guys, how are you today? I have a really cool guest on that I'm excited to have. We both share in being members of Arate Syndicate. He's an Arate brother of mine, but he is really an incredible force to be reckoned with. He has an incredible story, and I'm really looking forward to each of you hearing what he has to say. He is primarily, but not limited to, a person who can really be of incredible value to men who are fathers or want to be fathers or who are married and want to be true men in their marriages. So Ivan Fredette is a men's transformational and leadership coach. He's a resilience speaker and a co-founder of Ironclad Brotherhood, which is a movement for men who are ready to reclaim their strength and rebuild their lives and rise as leaders. And it was built through his trauma and his relentless pursuit of self-mastery. He had spent 17 years battling with alcohol addiction. He was numbing grief. He lost his cousin to suicide. And in 2020, he made a decision to get sober. And that choice was the beginning of everything that he has built since then. His sobriety gave him clarity. He was able to turn his tree service into a 7-figure tree care company from a small mismanaged operation out of his backyard. As you see and you listen to Ivan, you're going to learn how to take adversity and turn it into triumph, which is what we're all about. That this is a man who truly has crushed a life of difficulty and turned it into a life of triumph. Basically, what he does his Ironclad, he works with men who are ready to do the real work. And he is a really incredible speaker. He's an incredible person of authenticity. He launched his podcast. It's called The Final Relapse, which is had the incredible pleasure of being a guest on. You are going to learn about this kind of raw, unfiltered guy. He talks about masculinity, addiction, and what it really means to lead a life of excellence. By the end of this podcast, you're going to understand how to take any circumstance that you're in and turn it into something magnificent. So without any further ado, I really look forward to you getting to know him as I have had the honor to as well. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Alison from Alison Answers and Logger Counseling Services. As I mentioned earlier, I have a friend from Arte and a badass who has all of these great things happening that is going to change you if you let him. So basically, by the end of this podcast, if you're listening, you will understand how to take dark difficulties and tragedy and long-term suffering and turn it into triumph. because that's what we're about here. We're about triumphant change. We're about crushing mediocrity. We're about taking the hard things of our life and turning them into the sweetest things of our lives. And we are the ones who are masters of that. Please like, subscribe, and send this particular podcast to only to people who you know it's really going to make a difference in their lives. We're going to cover things like addiction, suicide, trauma, resilience. Hard things aren't hard, mental toughness. We'll see if we can do it. Without any further ado, this is Ivan Fredette. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
You did. Ivan Fredette, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, Ivan, can you start us out from kind of like the beginning? Like, how did you come up in this world to be where you are today? Because you are a beacon of success in so many different ways. You're driven and you're really making a difference. So I want to know, what were the key points in life that made you become who you are?
Yeah, I mean the big impactful things in my life. It all kind of started when I was coming into manhood. It was actually a month before my 18th birthday. Before then, I had a regular childhood. My parents aren't perfect. Nobody's are. But just before my 18th birthday, my cousin Tyler, we were best buddies. We were like brothers. We were same age. We grew up together. He lived with me just before this. He took his life. He hung himself on a doorknob. And that was a huge impact on me. I didn't have the tools to deal with it. I didn't have the leadership to help me work through that. Right after I moved away, went to school, never really dealt with it. And that led to a life of partying, basically. I was a motorcycle mechanic. I worked for Harley Davidson. I hung out with people that motorcycles attracted. And, most of my life was like that. And even when I left that industry, I didn't really care if I lived or died. And I became an arborist. I figured, shit, what is the most dangerous thing that I can do as an occupation to kind of keep that thrill going? And, climbing trees and having a chainsaw ding off my hip was the most craziest thing I could come up with. So that's kind of where my career went. I was really heavy drinker, probably about somewhere between 12, 18 beers a day. And I would finish it off with, a bottle of wine for dinner. And it wasn't until, and I was still able to be fairly successful. I was very driven my whole life. I had a very good work ethic for the most part, but it was the age of 35. It was right kind of when COVID was going. My son was born, my third. He was a 2020 baby. He was born in July. And then it was that Christmas. It was actually Boxing Day. I woke up that morning and, I didn't know how I got home the night before. And I looked out in the parking lot or in the driveway, and my truck was parked kind of half in the lawn, and the door was wide open, snow in there. And it was just kind of like, that feeling of anger and shame. And I came out of my bedroom. It was the sound of cartoons, actually, that woke me up. I came out of my bedroom and I was ready to yell at my 5-year-old daughter for having the TV too loud. And, it was at that moment that my paradigm shifted forever. I was like, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to kill the person I was. And thank God I chose the latter. I sat in the bathroom that day staring at the mirror, and it's something I never did. I actually brushed my teeth in the shower because I couldn't look myself in the face in the mirror in the mornings. I was just 245 pounds at that point. I had big fat cheeks, and it was at that moment that I was like, never again. I'm not doing this. However, no matter what I have to do, I will never do this. And at that point, my sister, who was everything to me, we were best buddies. It was just the two of us growing up. I had no other siblings. Tyler was the closest thing. She had been 3 years sober at this point, and I watched her go through this system, the traditional program of sobriety. And she'd always call me and tell me like, "Hey brother, I'm sick." It was like a lifelong sentence. Allison, she was just like, she never escape it. It was a sickness, and she had to go to these meetings, and she always called herself an alcoholic. I'm like, Genevieve, you haven't drank in 3 years. You're not an alcoholic. She's like, but I am. And I couldn't understand how she just would continue to make this identity for herself or keep this identity. And then there was nothing really else out there. So I told myself that I would create a system no matter what. And I didn't know what it was at the time, but I would create a system where I would build armor. I would build mental and emotional armor, not to compartmentalize myself, but to build strength so that if anything like that had happened again, then I wouldn't fall back into the same habits and patterns that I lived the last 17 years in, which is very difficult. So it actually worked out because my strategy was that I would build armor, and then there was 5 areas in my life that I needed to consistently improve. And those were aspirations, revenue, muscle, oneness, and relationships. Armor. So yeah. So the idea was if I continuously improved in these 5 areas, it would be unreasonable for me to fail. So I did. I built the system and other strategies to go along with it. And then 3 years later, almost to the day, Genevieve had taken her life. And it was the ultimate test. I was literally, my strategy was so that if anything like that happened again, I wouldn't fall back. And the absolute ultimate test was presented to me. And, it wasn't until about 5 days later, as soon as she did it, I got a plane ticket and I flew down to Texas. I'm in Niagara in Canada. It wasn't until about 5 days later, the worst week of our life, I'm in a hotel in League City, Texas with my mom. I come up out from the gym in the morning, get myself ready. I get in my mom's room, wake her up, get her ready for the day, come up with a plan to attack the day and figure out how we're gonna, get my sister home. Her husband found methamphetamine, and it was just this disaster mess, and he was next to kin. And anyways, well, 5 days in, my mom looked at me and she said, honey, she said, if this happened 3 years ago, I would have lost both my children. And she was right. The person I would have either killed him, her husband, and ended up in a Texas prison and ultimately killing myself, or I would have drank myself to death. And, it was at that moment where I realized the system that I had developed was extremely effective. And I knew that there was other men out there that would look at the traditional programs as a victimhood mentality as I did, but without any other option. So I created Ironclad Brotherhood, and that is somewhere where men can go to create a life of excellence through sobriety, rather than continuously telling yourself that, connecting your name to an identity that you no longer want. And that's snowballed into all kinds of different things, business coaching, and it turns out the strategy that I have helps more people than just addicts. And the other thing, Alison, that I realized is through my own journey and watching my sister and her journey, we tell addicts that they have this disease, that it's a predisposition, where in fact, because I work with so many entrepreneurs now, addicts and entrepreneurs are the same people. They're literally the exact same people. It is not a predisposition. It is not a disease. It's an absolute superpower. And they just need to learn the tools to put a leash on that beast and give it a direction. Because when we do, it is unbelievable what we're capable of. I truly think everybody's capable of, but people who are addicts or were addicts have the same traits as entrepreneurs, this ability to obsess. And when you can obsess on the proper things, like your armor or your life as a whole, it's undeniable on how successful and powerful you can become.
Yeah, this is awesome. I have a few things just to piggyback on, just
Yeah.
because I know, because I'm a drug and alcohol counselor as well as, a regular therapist. So I have which is so cool in our conversation because I agree with you in regard to, I believe in the 12-step program, the design for a living. However, I do not believe in anything after I am as a definition of a person. So, I would be in the 12-step program for various reasons, but one would be for like an eating disorder. So everybody be like, I'm a this, I'm a that. I would say, I'm in recovery by the grace of God. Like I am
Yeah.
I'm a victor, so I really believe in that. And what I want to say also, I think a big thing that ends up happening with people who have addictions, if they don't heal the actual core of what is causing the running away from their greatness, let's say, right?
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of it, like the numbing out, the fear, because it could be anything. It'd be belief systems that were developed in their childhood. But then what I see constantly, people go in for something, I'm an alcoholic, right? But meanwhile, then they're not drinking alcohol, but the heart of the matter is not addressed.
Yeah.
Then it's then they're compulsive overeaters, or then they're have a sex addiction. But those things aren't addressed because it's like in this kind of umbrella of I'm in recovery, and the assumption is you're in recovery, you're healthy, but not necessarily. You can be in like these totally traumatic relationships, like relationship horrors, like codependency, and those things are not being like it's not being applied. Like these principles that would actually change your life are not being applied to the whole person, right?
Absolutely. And that's
So,
why the
yeah,
armor model for me was
yeah,
so important.
yeah,
I can obsess on things.
yeah.
But if I just take, this is why I have a huge issue with people saying that alcoholism is a disease, this AUD, alcohol use disorder, because if you take alcohol out of it and you put crack in it, then it's no longer alcohol use disorder. Now, if you take crack out of it and you put fitness in it, it is no longer alcohol use disorder. It's it's an addictive personality. It's the ability to obsess. And if you take all of those things out and you put armor in, you focus on your aspirations, you focus on your revenue, you focus on your muscle, your health and your fitness, you focus on your oneness, your confidence, your courage, your faith, all of that lands in that, and your relationships. Then how is that now alcohol use disorder? Because you're doing the exact same thing as you were doing with alcohol, but you're making it this holistic approach, So I understand the 12-step program. I really do. I don't agree with many things of it because, the one that they say that it's a sickness or a disease like an allergy. Don't believe it. Truly don't. I think it's a superpower. And I think it's very important on how we talk to people and how we talk to ourselves. So if I tell myself there's nothing I can do about it. I'm sickness, and then I'm powerless and weak. So if I'm tempted by it, or if I drink it, I'm weak and powerless. Well, then whatever you tell yourself you are, or whatever you tell yourself you're going to do, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, and my program is not for people to be sober forever. If they choose to, absolutely. It's to gain control of your life. And once you have control, then it might be different. I don't know. I haven't got there. I have zero interest in drinking again, like absolute none. I'll probably have full control, but I'm not willing to test that. Well, I really just have no interest in it. It doesn't do anything for me. But if we attach our identity, tell ourselves we're an alcoholic. If we say it's a disease and there's nothing we can do about it, that's like a life sentence to me.
Right.
And I watch my sister go through, and we're weak and powerless against it. I'm not weak and powerless against anything. Absolutely nothing. It's just that I haven't built the skills on how to manage or how to defeat some things. That's all. I'm not powerless against anything. You come at me with a nuke. The only reason I can't defend myself is I haven't figured out how to yet. Right?
If you will, Ivan. Yeah.
You see what I mean, and I think it's very important. The other thing too is, and this is my own rabbit hole, and I don't tell people to think this, and I really truly mean that. People should, we already talked about this on my podcast, the outwitting the devil. I use that as a playbook. And the most powerful thing that you can have as a human being is have your own thoughts. So I look at these things and I try and unpack them. And honestly, when I see some of the things that have been put in place, I really find now, whether it's irony or not, but I think that the 12-step program or the traditional programs are a really good sales funnel. My own kind of putting the pieces together, but I'm sure it was created for the right reasons. But as soon as you give it a title like alcohol use disorder, well, now you can prescribe things. Now you can, there's all of these next steps from that is a huge industry where if you convince people of what they truly are, and that's powerful, if you convince people of what they truly are, and that's, not sick, and you change people's identity or show them how to change their identity, well, now you have nothing to gain from it.
Well, you know what's interesting about it just being in the mental health field is that the whole DSM, so the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, that's where all the diagnoses are. And they're like this requirement for insurance purposes, right? So we don't operate like that. We need them we need to use them just as in the back end for their insurance, but we do not operate from diagnoses because I do not believe in that. So I believe that anybody can change, and once you're labeled, it's very difficult. It's like kind of casting a spell on someone. I kind of look at it. And I think that, but the point, I think that anything like the Bible or any book could be used to beat the shit out of someone, or any program could be used in the wrong way. And it's kind of like, it's the same thing, mental health. Like, to me, that's my whole mission also, is to change the face of mental health to being like what you describe as your program is this holistic approach. Once the symptoms are alleviated, that's when we step on the gas and people move into their greatness, like highest level personal development. But a lot of what our society is teaching is and I think it's like in Outwitting the Devil, that his prediction and what he's describing is the same thing as now, is that we have this kind of draw to being like a victim of something, and then having like outside resources to fix that thing when we don't realize the power we have within. So also another thing, just a side note, is that in terms of like somebody getting out of an addiction, there's going to be different ways that people do it that help to build them up, because people are different,
Absolutely.
So it's like, so I just want to make sure, because people will listen to me who are in the 12-step program. So I just also want to say that if you're in the program, it is just very important not to identify yourself as any illness or because everything after I am will dictate your life.
Absolutely.
So this is just utilize what brings you higher, right? And then what you do is this great, unbelievable thing, because you have this mission is like, it goes beyond addiction. It goes beyond what we are calling obsession, right?
Yeah.
It goes into how do you become the best man or human that you can be while here on this earth, right? Isn't that your
Absolutely, absolutely. So when I look at my armor framework, I measure myself. So I match that with what I call the iron C's. And the iron C's is clarity, confidence, courage, consistency, core values, and charisma. So in every aspect of armor, I want to get clarity first. I want to understand exactly who I want to be, and I want to create that identity. I call it the freedom formula. I notice you have your own freedom formula. Mine is identity plus action equals freedom, right? Now, creating that identity first is part of the clarity. And then you build confidence, and confidence is built by making the promises or keeping the promises you make to yourself. So I'll come up with daily non-negotiables. I'll break my vision, my clarity, into manageable chunks. I call them small chunks. And then you take the big chunk, make it in small chunks, right down to daily tasks. And you keep those promises. You start small and you grow them. You know this. Our mentors preach this stuff. And same with courage. Confidence and courage are not factory installed. We have to develop them
Good.
like a muscle, right? We don't come with an owner's manual. We have to learn and develop these things. So courage, again, is putting yourself into small risks. And these could be so simple as like taking a cold shower. That's a small risk. And then they grow. And then all of a sudden you're able to take these big risks. But consistency, the third C, this is important. And you have to stay consistent. And part of consistency is measuring. You have to measure what you're doing to know if you're on track or off track, hitting your milestones. Measurements is huge. And when it comes to armor, I look at all aspects of armor and I measure them every day on a scale of 1 to 5, no threes. Not allowed using 3. This forces you to tip the scale. So if I'm sitting at a 4, that's good. If I'm sitting at a 5, that to me is just as bad as sitting at a 2 or a 1.
Wait, sitting at a what? Not
a
a 5 is bad?
Is bad because that tells me that I'm not doing something to challenge myself.
Oh, to go to the next level, right?
Yeah.
Like now
So
you're there. Now you got to move forward, right?
yeah, I hit a 5.
Got it.
I can't stay there. I
Got it.
cannot stay there.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got perfect relationships. Well, that doesn't exist. Where am I not challenging one?
That's cool.
Where,
Yeah.
So 4 is where I want to be kind of riding. And 2 is not bad either because, we're always looking for improvement. And then core values. And this, I think, is so important, especially for people in addiction that most don't teach. The core values, once you have those, you have to fight relapse. And my whole thing is never falling back into the same patterns and habits that you once had. So in order to do that, you need a decision-making process. You need something in that you can measure your choices and decisions against. Core values. Mine are learn, leadership through action, evolve to greatness, accountability to oneself, resilience in the face of adversity, and no surrender. Those are my 5 core values. And I say, learn to build armor. And now anytime I'm faced with a challenge or a decision, do I want to pick up that drink? Well, I revert back to my core values. This is my North Star. And that will help me make all of my decisions. And then the last C is charisma. Once I've learned all of this, I need to learn how to deliver that. I need to learn how to walk into a room and attract people to me, not only for my own benefit, for networking, but how can I change their lives? Because I may not know the meaning of life, but I certainly know the purpose. And the purpose of life, as far as I'm concerned, is to continuously grow and help other people, because knowledge kept is knowledge stolen. So how do I learn how to take what I have and give it to others?
Yes.
That's charisma. You need that. And that's the next step. And that's how we find our true purpose. And once we find purpose, we are absolutely unstoppable.
I love this. I really do love this because I never heard you go through all of these things. I saw them. I was going to ask you about it, the C's, because I love C's. I love C's, certainty. I always say, I am clarity. Like, this is what I will say, like, every day. I am confidence. I am courage. Like, so it's like, it's funny because I believe in this. So like, clarity is king. It's like truth. You know it. You see
you
it.
can't start on any of the others
Nothing.
until it has to be first.
Yeah.
Clarity is always first. And you know,
I crave it, don't you? Don't you
oh yeah,
crave clarity?
to an extent. To an extent.
All I want
I
is that.
I like personally, and a lot of people are different. I like long-term clarity.
Mhm.
I don't do well on short-term clarity. I feel like I'm boxed in. You know,
Could you explain that further? Because we may not. I haven't thought of it in that kind of way, like in terms of like clarity now or
yeah.
clarity later. Yeah.
So I need a larger mission. And that is what I need to be clear on. Like when we were talking on my podcast, we were talking about my pond. You know, I had exact clarity on what my property was going to look like, where my house was going to go, where the trees were going to be planted. I had this vision, how I was going to get there, and all of the steps in between were not clear. And if I sat down and tried to make that clear, I would end up locking myself into analysis paralysis.
Yeah, and all the ways you can't do it, like that, those obstacles. No, yeah, I don't even
know that.
Yeah.
And I know that. So I'm very careful on how I make my daily non-negotiables. They have to be tied directly to my long-term vision, and I have to be able to shift and pivot quickly. If something comes up, I can't be so set on it and you know that I get locked in. So I have to be able to be like, okay, that's not working anymore. Boom. What's the next thing? That's not working anymore. Boom. What's the next thing? And that drives most people absolutely mad. But if you can learn how to pivot and move while staying clear on the end goal, that's what I'm talking about. Clarity on close things. Today, you know, my schedule is there, but I keep it fairly loose. And that's going to be like, everyone's, especially in our community, no, you can't do that. If I keep a tight schedule, I feel restraint and I can't be me.
Yeah.
You know, I did this test. What was it? One of those tests that you do.
Like a personality test?
Yeah. And I did it, and the result, it was actually one of the better ones, and that was probably one of the better ones because it told me what I wanted to hear. I know this. But at the end, it's like, don't be too structured because it will lock you.
It is. Isn't it the
Yes,
Colby?
it's the Colby. Yeah. That's it. That's what I said to Davey. But
I got that same thing. It said, you do better not planning. If you're going to go speak on a stage, you got to shoot from the hip. You're going to do better.
Exactly.
That's what it said about me.
Yeah, I was the exact same, identical. Yeah. And it was true. And I go in, and that's when you asked me for my podcast. Is like, how can I serve you best? I'm like, let's just go for it. Whatever happens. And that's how I have to be. And that's when I get my best results. But I always have the long-term vision in like clear as I can smell it. I can smell the room. I can taste the things in the air. You know what I mean? It's so clear. But without clarity, nothing else can happen. There's certain things in the iron seas that I can mix around, like core values. Sometimes, depending on the person, those will be right off the hop, you know, because they do lack morals and values and don't even know what they are.
Yeah.
You know, that's where I'll move that. Courage and confidence can be mixed. Sometimes people need the courage first to build the confidence. Some don't. They can just go right into confidence and build the courage after. But clarity and consistency, those two cannot be moved.
You know, it's interesting because as you're describing being someone who doesn't want to be using the word clarity for the moments, you know, in the day, but in actuality, you have an organized way about you as well, because it's consistency. You know, it's, you know, we were talking about on the other podcast is like that we have terms that we use, like words, and we'll have different definitions.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, it's funny because when you're describing clarity in the moments up to your vision, right? That feels like constraint and like obstacles, right? But it's funny. And also we all know that if we have a vision, I was saying that one of my favorite quotes is, I lay hold of my vision, obstacles must give way. Because if we focus on those how-tos, we're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nowhere. There's
Absolutely.
it is like a waste. People will always, and we could even say this, people look at people like us like we're crazy. I'm like, we're doing that. They're like, how? I'm like, never ask me how.
Yeah, I don't
have
know.
made the decision.
Yeah.
The decision is happening. I think one of the things you have that you're offering people that is really fantastic, anybody who's suffering from any like addicted or struggle, any addiction or struggle, is you're teaching people to make the power move. I have decided. There's no, and I like how it's related to, because I believe in surrender to God as faith, as we were discussing, but you saying no surrender is like, I've decided, and I'm not surrendering to anything else. There's no surrendering. That is what I'm doing. But I'm burnable enough. Yeah. But I'm also not stupid that if something's a better path along the way, I'm taking it.
Pivot,
the
move.
better one, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to just stay on that one because I said it. I'm just going to, right? Yeah. So it's like and people learning that will have so much more confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this mentality of the dream job. I think of, because I used to, it's get a safe job, you get in a union. I'm like, oh my God, I had that mentality once. I worked for one of the biggest unions in Ontario here in Canada. And it was like, I've never felt so trapped in my life.
But did you know you were trapped? Because your mentality, similar, think about it. You're talking about core values. Somewhere your value in there must have been some level of like security or some fear, right? Something that was driving that, because you're not like that now.
I wasn't like that
What
then.
did you believe?
I was listening to external opinions. I knew right away once I was in there that I stuck it out for 4 years because, maybe it'll change. And then I just got more miserable and more miserable and more miserable. And finally I'm like, I can't do it anymore.
Did you feel like there was something, like you knew it wasn't right for you, but did you feel like because of the outside voices, there was something wrong with you, that it wasn't right for you? Because everybody was saying, that's good.
No, it wasn't, because I've always had that feeling that I was meant for more.
That's good.
And this is one of the reasons I developed Ironclad Brotherhood, because there are so many people out there, Alison, that know that they're meant for more, that cannot do the traditional program. Yes, it saves a lot of lives. It helps a lot of people, but I don't see a lot of people in there doing remarkable things. That's just an observation.
Yeah. Because if that's the only thing, if that's the greatest accomplishment, then everything else stops. Like, that's why we believe in, like, you step on the gas when that thing's out of the way, right? Hey, guys, how are you? Isn't that amazing? This story that we're hearing on this show is great. I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book. And then I realized, how is that right? To keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage, and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it, because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book, and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read, and there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts are things, and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity or a life of poor design because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it.
Ed Milet describes it best. I was on one of the calls, and he used a thermostat as, we always kind of ride the 72 degrees. And as soon as it gets too hot, we let our foot off the gas and we drop back down, and then it'll go the other way and it'll get cold. And we're like, oh shit. And then we gotta turn the heat back up. And we always kind of ride where, for me, that's not the case. I see it like he does, where you keep moving. But I picture, again, I'm very visual. So I picture an ice cube on a table in a room. Now we're different. We're a metric system here in Canada. So we run on Celsius rather than Fahrenheit, right? So I picture this room at minus 30 Celsius, and it's freezing cold in this room, and this ice cube sitting on the table. And I turn the thermostat up 1. Well, the room got warmer. You don't feel it. Nothing happened with the ice cube. And then I turn it up the next day, and I keep turning it up, and then you hit 0 degrees. Well, 0 degrees for us is when, ice melts, and then the ice starts to melt. And then you turn it up. So something's changed. You were doing something the entire time. Nothing's changed. Now it has. And you keep going. And then there's another phase where it's a bowl of water and nothing's happening. And then you hit 100 degrees. Well, now it starts to boil. Right? Now you have boiling water. And then it boils for a while. And then you hit 110. Now it turns into steam. And steam can power a locomotive. It's never about finding the comfortable position. It's about finding what's next, riding the edge of possible. What can I possibly do next? How can I improve? I'm working on this project right now. You'll like this one. And everyone's like, oh my God, just stop. We know you have a lot of ideas. But this one I'm pushing through. We've got 100 acres here in our hometown. It's beautiful, gorgeous property. And we've got 30 acres of forest. And I'm like, how can I tie my coaching into, a big part of my coaching is physical. I'm like, how can I tie the coaching into something physical and in challenges? So I'm starting the Iron Will Challenge. It's going to be an obstacle-based 5-kilometer mud run.
That's so good.
Yes. So we'll be able to do 3 a year because it's a special event, same spot always. And if it's invite only, it's not considered a special event. I don't need a special permit. So we can host corporate team building events. We can do father-son events.
Oh, I love that. So what are you going to be? Are you also going to use the mental, obviously you're doing something physical, but are you also going to use your C's, to teach that in conjunction, or is it just developing mental toughness physically, which is
absolutely. So when we do corporate team building events or leadership team building, we'll definitely do that. If it's just one of the special events, a 1-day event, it's just going to be a race.
That's
and
cool.
Yeah, so we've got different buildings here. So the property I'm on used to be an explosive factory. They made dynamite. So it's really
not
cool.
A coincidence.
Probably
is it?
not.
Have you ever thought of that?
No, it's definitely not a coincidence. Actually, I found this property so I quit drinking Boxing Day of 2020, February of 2021, just after my birthday. I was going to the post office. I never go to the post office. I ordered a book online. I can't remember what I want to say. Michael Singer's
The Untethered Soul.
The Untethered Soul.
Yeah, love that book.
And I drive by this property, and there's this old man nailing a sign to the tree. I'm an arborist. I was like, that's not right. So I wheel in, it's for lease. I'm like, well, what are you leasing? He's like, well, everything's available, really. None of it gets used. And I was like, cool. So we ended up leasing part of it, and then we ended up leasing it. And now it's all of it. And to make the purchase happen, I need to come up with X amount of dollars. So I'm like, now it's grown, and my speaking career starting to grow, and the coaching program starting to grow, and now it's like, what better way to utilize the property than through a challenge such as this? And I've already got the equipment. I've got the excavator, I've got wood and a crane and a bulldozer and all of these things to make it happen. So it's all right there. So here
I
we
think
go.
we should touch on something, two different things. One is,
Yeah.
I believe it's both men and women, but I also really strongly believe this for men. It is also women. I think we all need a meaningful pursuit. So I think that you're living that out. You're living out always having a meaningful pursuit, right? Which is dynamite. That's the
Yeah.
way we should live, right? And I want to tie that into the concept that I've done 75 hard, you've done 75 hard. Hard things aren't hard anymore. It's not even about physicality at all. So basically now, like, I would love to, I want to know about what your obstacle, I don't want to call it obstacle, what your tough mudder or whatever it is you're doing, what kind of courses and what are you looking to achieve? I think it's mental toughness. That's my assumption, but I
Mhm.
don't, tell me what it is.
It's mental toughness and human connection is
That's the
for
coolest.
for the events in a digital age where everything, especially with artificial intelligence right now, fathers are not paying attention, mothers are not paying attention, kids aren't paying attention. I want to be able to bring everybody together in a mental challenge. And like you said, physical, it's not physical. Everything is here. We can overcome anything if we can convince ourselves that.
Yeah.
And create that identity again. So it's going to consist of things similar to the other companies that run these, but ours will be stationary here with the coaching facility here always. And like I said, there's 30 acres of forest. That forest is filled with swamps. It's like this. So there's about 8 swamps that run like fingers throughout. So going through the swamp in a dark forest is very dense. There's an element to that brings, it's the grit that kind of ties you into nature too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being an arborist, I know the effect that, trees have on mental health, and the effect that being in a forest and in amongst the trees, and then and tying all of that together, and then, the mud pits and the walls and all of these different challenges will bring people together because they have to help each other overcome these limited beliefs that I can't get over that, or I can't go through there, or I'm just not built for this. Well, when we come together, we learn. And that is one thing that you will never get from artificial intelligence. That is one thing you will never get from video games and digital world. That physical touching, helping somebody over something.
Yeah.
That's what I want to create. And that, I think, will bring parents together, friends together, fathers and sons. I want to do one specific event for fathers and sons. It'll be the rite of passage. And, sons between 12 and 16, or maybe 14 and 18. And the 3-day event where it's, a rite of passage into manhood and a coaching aspect with it. And, all of these different ideas, but I can now tie all of this stuff together with one kind of course and an idea. Right?
You know what it is? It's to me, I feel like you're part of your mission, or maybe that's totality, is you're bringing back the things that actually create like wholeness. Like, and when I think about when you describe father son, one of the primary things I would try to help families with is that moms would be criticizing the dads for allowing a kid to, let's say, climb on something high, and the mother would be protecting and the father would be like, they can do it. And that's what I thought of when you were describing. I'm picturing like a father assisting but allowing a son, but the father as a safety net. You can do this. which is
Yeah.
developing like this manhood and connection with like the way a father is really supposed to help a child get into confidence. It's not
Yeah.
just father son. Like our dads are supposed to to show us we're safe and we can do it. And, I know for me as a little girl, I was afraid of everything physical, and I am so physical. I'm so into athletics and all this stuff. I was afraid of getting hurt. I didn't have a father going, "You can do this. I got you." Like that message that you'd be surprised how many people fall into all different things because of that. Like they feel
Yeah.
shame. They're not like everyone else, like kids in school getting bullied. I don't know. I just took that on a whole trail, but
No,
it
you're
really,
100% right. You could go anywhere with this, and with the coaching aspect, where you're talking about what fathers can do with sons, we can be there as coaches and do that for the fathers. We
yes,
can pull them aside
yes,
and say, "Hey, man, listen. This is what we do. This is what we're supposed to do as fathers. This is what emotional intelligence is. This is what it means to be a man. Take this and show your son."
yeah. Show him that you got him, but he can do it. Like that is like so cool. Like, don't we all need that to know that
100%.
like, yeah, I do at this stage, and you're doing that for people, Ivan, because you're like, you can do this. I got you. It's like
Yeah.
that same thing. I'm far enough away for you to do it yourself, but I'm encouraging, like, I know you can do it. And
Yeah.
that's really like that's the
On the
world changing, wouldn't you say?
100%.
Family
100%.
changing.
And the things too is when the fathers do fall, because they fall,
Yes,
right? Fathers do
of
fall.
course.
And we're there as the facilitators to help them along. And when they want to quit, you pull them aside, and you know if you're quitting here now, where else in your life is this showing up?
Yeah.
Where else are you having the same pattern, giving in, surrendering to this narrative that you've
Mediocrity.
created? Yes, right.
Lower volume of who you're meant to be. Like,
Yeah,
how did the volume go down?
turn that shit up. Let's go,
Turn it
man.
up. So
Yeah.
now, and so like you're fatherly for them. Doesn't matter the age, like you're fatherly for them, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's such a lost, we have the lowest testosterone, with males now. And our culture is really desperate for real men, like really, really, like the women, even though they're fighting this and like, bad mouthing men, they desperately need to be women. They
What
desperately need to
what they
receive.
call toxic masculinity. I hate that, because toxic behavior is what you're talking about, not masculinity. It's actually the lack of masculinity
100%.
that is the toxic behavior. And it's not because women can be just as toxic. So what is it? Toxic feminine? Like, get off of it,
Well,
let's
it's
just get
anybody
stuff.
be toxic, but think about
Yeah.
it. It's almost like you could even have a heart for a man who is displayed that way because they're making whatever the attempt is to to find their masculinity, but it's like wonky because it's like, oh, I was taught that it's like being aggressive, but it doesn't mean they just want to be it. They want to be what they're meant to be, but this is how they learn to do it, right?
Strength
Yeah.
under control.
Yeah.
And I told you this on the last podcast. Strength under control is true masculinity, and it shows up in three ways: physical strength, mental strength, and emotional strength. And if you're lacking in one, you're lacking in all.
I
And
love
that's the bottom line. You can
how
be the
much do
nicest
women
boy.
want that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, or you could be the nicest guy in the world, and you can be totally emotionally available. But if you're a fat turd and you can't fight or flight, then how masculine are you? And if you're a fat turd, that tells me that chances are you lack discipline. So you lack the mental toughness too. And probably that is from some kind of emotional bullshit that you haven't figured out too. It's the lack of masculinity, the lack of strength in one of those is what people see as toxic behavior, not toxic masculinity. It's when this guy is this tough guy and treats everybody like shit. Well, he's not emotionally strong.
No.
That's a masculine trait that he's missing.
Yeah.
Strength there.
Yes. Yeah. Bullies aren't masculine, right?
No.
No. No. Very weak and scared. Yeah.
Yeah. And in all honesty, I know we gotta end this soon, but the reaction that men have are often, and this is gonna sound bad, but I don't know how else to describe this. The reaction that most men have when women thinks it's toxic is actually, I find, a feminine trait.
When they're like reaction, highly emotional or reacting, I don't think anybody should really be getting like.
No, I agree. Nobody should be like that. But I look at it, and women have emotions. They have different hormones. They react very differently than men. And I think that's just the fact of things. I think there's very strong women and there's very weak women. But when I see men react, I'm like, well, you kind of remind me of how a woman reacts.
Don't say it.
And I know how it sounds. But what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying that the reaction itself is feminine.
Well, it's emotion out of control. It's emotion dysregulated and not right, not together, and not, and yeah. And
I know.
no, listen,
I've been sharing you believe fighting this is like, how do I say this?
Yes, because when we say like, if we had, and probably you're fighting it because there's so much sensitivity and wah. I don't care if people take our words and split hairs. Well, then they can like live with that emotion, but don't comment.
Exactly.
Because we don't mean anything negative about either gender in either.
Not at all.
Have you heard this? Which maybe you have, that women are like water flowing and men are like the glass around it. That they're solid, they're like there, but so a woman can move freely within it, not in a crazy way, but but they have the safety of someone who's giving them this kind of like strength around them, which allows them to be free and like feminine in that flowing way. Right?
Listen, here's the fact. There's been times where I walked into the room, my wife is bawling. I'm like, God, what's wrong? She's crying, and she's like, I don't know.
I understand.
I'm like,
yes.
Okay, that's what I mean by feminine trait. Women are built differently, and they have something inside of them that just lets go sometimes.
We need to be able to do that and not be judged and felt like we're crazy, because then we're over it.
Men can feel their emotions. I'm not saying that they can't feel their emotions. It's very important that we do, but how we react to it, is usually not right. And we have to learn how to respond. It's it is what it is.
So listen, because of our time, the time frame we're in, like there's so many other things that you and I could discuss. There's so many things we could
100%.
probably get on and talk about, really the ramifications and the experience of being a loved one of somebody who died by suicide. We could talk about all different growth mindset. There's so many different things. And one of the things I just want to say to everyone who's listening is, I want you to really take a look and listen to Ivan's podcast. I want you to go on to his Ironclad Brotherhood. We're going to tell you how to do that. All of that's in the show notes, but I'm going to have Ivan also explain to you how to get in touch with him, what he offers, and I very strongly recommend you reaching out to him and seeing in what way he could really help to transform your life. I know I'm a woman, and clearly, and I know that from my perspective is that Ivan has this incredible lane with men and, really helping them just develop holistically. But I can tell just by his list right here how much that would help me as a woman. And I'm somebody who's works on myself all the time. So I know that your value is incredible. So I want to encourage anyone, if you can just go after this dude before he gets too famous that you can't have him anymore.
Well,
That is
that costs more.
exactly. This is what happens. I am telling you, because I'll collaborate with someone who's badass, whatever. They'll be like, "Oh, I want to collaborate with you." Now, all of a sudden, they're like the top in the world. I'm like, "Why didn't I collaborate with them and learn from them earlier?" So, anyhow,
Well,
but no, you are obviously very successful, anyhow, in the ways that you're successful. But okay,
yeah,
yeah,
it's real easy to find me. Ivan Fredette across the board. At Ivan Fredette on Facebook, ivanfredette.com. Everything is on ivanfredette.com. FRED. I know T's, E's, and D's all sound the same, so it's very difficult. ivanfredette.com. Ironclad Brotherhood is on there. Armor coaching, that's the same model I use for addicts as I use for entrepreneurs and executives, because they're the same people. So high performance coaching.
you do that online or also in person? Yep.
Both online and in person. I prefer in person, but it's very difficult, especially when I'm in Canada and, y'all have more of a capitalist approach, which aligns better with me. Anyways, we won't go there. So yeah, Ironclad Brotherhood's there. My speaking, you can book me as a speaker at your event, whatever. The Iron Will coming soon is there, and my podcast, The Final Relapse. It's all at ivanfredette.com. And yeah, the speaking portion is what I'm pushing the most right now. Is the most impact I can have is many people at once. And I really kind of like being on stage.
That's cool. And you belong there.
Yeah, I actually won third place in North America's largest inspirational speaking competition.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I could see
I had
that.
5 minutes to deliver my speech, and yeah, it was really kind of cool.
You know what? I do see that in you. And I do see one of the things you bring is a tremendous amount of, I don't want to say tremendous. It is tremendous, but it's impactful energy that can change a room. I knew that the second I met you. I was like, oh,
Charisma.
so much, right. You have, because you can command a room and that can really help people. And we do need strong leaders who have integrity and honesty. And I really believe that's who you are. And I'm so grateful to know you. I'm so grateful that you took the time to be on my podcast and share so much wisdom here that I'm actually going to use myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hope you do.
I will. So is there any last parting statements that you want to say to one person who has lost all hope? Maybe they don't, because I have a whole viral reel where people are just saying how they want to die. They've had 4 attempts, all these different things, and it's out of control. Hundreds of thousands of people talking about this on this one thing. So I'm going to use a clip from you that you speak directly to a person on there, and I'm going to post it.
So the first thing I would say, I'm going to say a couple things. 1, take imperfect action. Everything in my life from the day that I wanted to take mine was imperfect action. I just did it. And then I did something else. And then I did something else. 90% of it didn't work. But what I gained from it was remarkable. The lessons that I learned from taking imperfect action was incredible. The other thing I want to say is what you say to yourself is more important than anything else in the world. How you speak to yourself and how you treat yourself should be the biggest focus of everything you do. And when you said integrity, Alison, everybody looks at integrity as, what you doing what you say. But everybody forgets true integrity is doing what you tell yourself you're going to do.
Yes.
Because if you can master that, hold any promise, you can stay true to any promise. Because keeping a promise to yourself is one, the most difficult thing to do. And two, the most valuable thing you'll ever do. And start small. Tell yourself you wake up with the alarm, never hit snooze again, stick to that promise, keep it, and then they'll grow from there. You'll build confidence and courage. Stay consistent.
I love that. I want to plug into something you just said, because I have noticed the way people on that thread are thinking. They're hearing anything that tells them to take a courageous action to take their own life as a green light. So I just want to make sure you know that Ivan is not saying that. When he's saying to take an action and follow through, he's not talking about dying by suicide, to be clear.
No, that's
okay.
That's
I just want you to know that I know that, because when I talk to them, this is what they say. Like that, they find a way.
That to me is not courage. That
No.
to me is not courage.
No.
Courageous action means doing what is necessary of you to be the best person that you can be for yourself and the people around you.
Yes.
That's courage.
Yeah.
True courage is, and I'm sorry, I know we got to wrap this up, but so many people think that they're a burden on others. Please remember, you are not a burden on other people. You are not a burden on other people. It is their responsibility to manage their own lives. It is your responsibility to manage yours. Those people, as soon as you walk away, are thinking about the next thing. You are the only one that is talking to you all day long.
Mm-hmm.
What you say to yourself is so important.
Yes. I couldn't agree more.
Everything in your life is happening for you. You just have to be an active participant in figuring out what the lesson or purpose of it is.
Yes.
Everything, as horrible, when the day my sister took her life, I was on the phone. Her husband is in rehab, chewing his face off, so I know it wasn't successful. And I'm watching my mom on video get the phone call saying she's gone, she shot herself, and my mom fall to her knees. And I knew, as horrible as it sounds, that moment was happening for me.
Yep.
I just didn't know why yet.
Yep.
And it is the most remarkable thing that you can do when you learn that everything in your life is a lesson to build adversity. Because one day you're going to look back at the moment that you're in right now, and you're going to say, thank God I had that lesson. Yep. Because it's turned me into the person that I am now.
That is true. Yes, I agree. With all of that being said, and lowering our energy, it is a wrap. I'm giving some instructions to you guys. My masculines out here. Subscribe, like, and comment, because I look at all the comments. And you want me to do any podcast? You want Ivan to do anything? You just tell us.
Let me know. I'll answer questions. I'd love to.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Alison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe, if you could, to YouTube, Alison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.